Oral questions by members.
Member for Caribou Chilcotin.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Tourists beaten black and blue. Random attacks on Vancouver seawall. A man decapitated. A mother punched in the face while holding her baby. Hands cut off in a brutal machete attack. Extreme violence, including armed break-ins. Brutal assaults on women. Violent rapes. Random attacks on health workers are the new normal in this province. Mr. Speaker, time and time again, what we get from the supposed Minister of Public Safety are prepared speaking notes. Today, when will this minister stand up and do his job to protect British Columbians?
Minister of Public Safety and Solicitor General.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to the member opposite for the question. I think that we've made it crystal clear in the House what we're doing in British Columbia to protect British Columbians. Every day, we're taking actions here that the prior government did not take. As a matter of fact, we're catching up with some of the things that you still have not done. So to directly answer your question, we're taking actions to support business owners, we're taking actions to support community members, we're taking action every day to protect this province through our police all across the province, and we will continue to do that.
Member supplemental.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think the minister may not know what's happening in Williams Lake, may not understand fully the concern that the City Council has with respect to what might be the province's first order of emergency in our province with respect to crime. The reality is the government's failed approach has led to nothing but disorder and chaos in my community. In Williams Lake, people are being robbed. Businesses that you claim to support are being vandalized almost every single night. Families are afraid to go downtown. We're dealing with arson almost every single night. And what has this government done specifically to support Williams Lake? Because to my recollection, it is nothing, Mr. Speaker. Chaos reigns on our streets, and now the City of Williams Lake may have to declare a local state of emergency because of this horrible situation. How has this Premier allowed Williams Lake to descend into what is now pure and utter chaos in our community?
Minister of State for Community Safety.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you for the member for the questions. I agree public safety is important in Williams Lake. As recent as yesterday, the RCMP detachment in Williams Lake had a meeting with the service providers as well as the community to look at how to target the issues they're facing. We have reached out to Council and Mayor. I have a direct conversation, if I may.
Members.
If I may finish, you asked a question.
Members, please continue.
We reach out directly to Mayor and Council and have a call with the Mayor directly this afternoon, to learn about directly what are the issues facing Williams Lake and what the province can help. And I'm actually going to get to that. It's reason that it's going to be in July. There will be 40 additional emergency beds available in Williams Lake to help part of the situations. Thank you.
Member for Abbotsford South.
Mr. Speaker, we've heard about it. Attacks on the seawall of tourists. Mothers punched in the face while holding a baby. The unprecedented point where a city declares a state of emergency due to the violence and the rampant nonsense it's taking on underneath this Premier's watch. It's like a horror movie out of an apocalypse. It is shameful It is disgusting. This is life in British Columbia under this Premier. But it doesn't stop there, Mr. Premier, or Mr. Speaker. Here in Victoria, oh, you can laugh. Go ahead, laugh. Let's hear you laugh about this. In downtown Victoria, we saw the provincial capital turned into a hellscape. A paramedic was beaten bloody and surrounded by over 60 people who descended on him as a violent mob. That paramedic might very well be dead today if a Victoria firefighter hadn't stand up to defend him with no less than an axe. An axe! Mr. Speaker, this is a scene out of a horror film that people in British Columbia are having to live by day. My question through you, through to the Premier, does he think it's normal or acceptable for a firefighter in BC to have to wield an axe like a weapon to prevent a mob from brutally beating a paramedic? Or will he admit here and today that his policies have broken BC?
Minister of Housing.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Honourable Speaker, violence of any kind against any first responder is simply unacceptable. I'm not sure if I fully agree with the member's account of the situation, but I can say I think everybody in this House would agree that we want to make sure that all first responders are protected and that our communities are safe. I don't think that's a partisan issue. I think we all agree on that. I think that the challenge that the member raised about in Victoria, in particular around the encampment in Pandora, it's a real challenge. We've been working on that for some time. The members...
Members, let the minister answer. Minister will continue.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. The challenge of homelessness, the challenge of poverty is a challenge that we're all very seized upon. That encampment had over 100 people last year. The incident of the firefighter and the paramedic brought communities together. It brought our first responders together. It brought our service providers together. We put an action plan in place. Now there's 19 people in that encampment, and housing is being offered to all of those individuals, Honourable Speaker. We're going to continue that work because we know that both the community needs to be safe, our first responders need to be safe, but at the same time we want to make sure that every individual has roof over their head, has the wraparound supports. We're putting those things in place.
Member supplemental.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I find it interesting that the minister talks about encampments. Well, here's a horror scene. Sadly, it's not a movie. In my hometown of Abbotsford, 13-year-old Brianna McDonald died cold, alone, and probably scared. She died of an overdose in one of the NDP government-sanctioned tent cities. God only knows what that 13-year-old girl's life was like in that tent city. Mr. Speaker, this was a child who was wanted, who was loved, and who was given drugs instead of treatment by this NDP government. Before she died of an overdose, Brianna's parents saw her go to an NDP drug site where she picked up free needles, drug cooking kits, and pamphlets on how to do hard drugs provided by this government and this Premier. My question to the Premier, if he has the guts to stand up, will you admit that the broken safe supply and decriminalization policies that you personally
Through the
pushed
chair.
through have contributed to the death of this innocent child.
Members, all questions and comments through the chair, please. Minister.
Thank you so much, Honourable Speaker. And of course, this has been a topic that we have discussed in this place. We want to make sure whether an individual's... Honourable Speaker,
Members,
I think this is a serious question, and the member continues to heckle. You know, we're talking about a child here. We're talking about a child here.
members, please continue.
Honourable Speaker, it doesn't matter if it's a child or if it's a senior. Anyone living in an encampment deserves a roof over their heads. That's why we've been... No one should be in encampments. No one should be in encampments, Honourable Speaker. Yeah, that's right. That's why we're building housing, Honourable Speaker. Honourable Speaker, there's two ways to handle and support people in encampments. There's one way, which is get housing, get people with wraparound supports. Honourable Speaker, there's
Member for
wraparound
Surrey
supports
Cloverdale.
you can put around them.
Members, come to
time.
order.
It's your time.
Minister.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. There's two ways of addressing encampments. One is you can put housing and wraparound supports on them, or you can take the approach that the member just raised the questions took, which were throwing chicken manure on encampments, hoping they would move when he was the mayor of Abbotsford.
Members, let's focus on the question and answer, please. Members,
It's your time.
we are wasting our time, members. Minister will conclude.
Thank you so much, Honourable Speaker. Honourable Speaker, we have been taking on encampments throughout the province, just like communities across North America have been taking them on. This is not an isolated issue in BC. This is a North America issue. We are doing it with compassion. We are building housing. We're building wraparound supports. We're saving lives, Honourable Speaker, and we're going to continue to work with our local government partners to do that.
Thank you. Leader of the third party.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. We've spent a lot of this session talking about legislation to deal with tariffs and how to speed up building of infrastructure. And now we all go back to our communities that are fearful for the summer season. And building on what my colleague was saying, these communities are in desperate need of support, and wildfire resilience is alarmingly inadequate and needs more investment. In past years, contingency funds were used to respond to wildfires, but with the cancelling of the carbon tax, there are less funds to pull from. My question is to the Minister of Forests. How is the ministry preparing for this forest fire season, and how does this government say it's done all it can on wildfires while a $10 billion deficit plus looms over every spending decision on wildfires?
Minister of Forests.
Thanks very much, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank the member opposite for the question. As I'm standing up here, I'm thinking of the people of Manitoba. Premier of Manitoba declared a state of emergency yesterday. Really proud of the hardworking men and women of the BC Wildfire Service that are stepping up and heading over to support. By the end of this weekend, we expect we'll have over 250 resources in Ontario, Manitoba, as well as Saskatchewan as well, to be able to support our neighbours. But that's not going to stop the work that we have to do. That's why on this side of the House in 2022, as part of our budget process, we took the decision to make the BC Wildfire Service year-round operation, making sure that we have 600 hardworking men and women working all year round to help better support communities. I was in Kimberley just a couple of weeks ago having an opportunity to see a prescribed burn happening. Those are the type of initiatives that we are taking in every part of our province, because we know that wildfires are increasing. We know it is so important that we make investments, and it's why on this side of the House we continue to make investments in prescribed burns and new technologies to better support communities in upcoming wildfire seasons.
Member supplemental.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to the Minister for the answer. We may be able to temporarily handle wildfires this season. Maybe with luck we'll have a slow wildfire season, but unlike some of the other battles on tariffs or on clean energy, we are not winning this battle. We know we're not doing enough because the temperature keeps rising. I think members probably know me well enough to know my biggest fear is that history looks back on us and says we didn't solve the problems of our time, that we kicked the can down the road, focusing on short-term problems to get re-elected. I think history will show that the insecurity and unrest that we're all feeling and that we're describing in many different ways in this House is in no small part that we've changed our planet in a way that we're not fully equipped to contemplate. So, given the undermining of carbon pricing and doubling down on conventional economic
Question,
models,
member.
I want to know from the Premier what hope this government is giving to British Columbians that the protection of their health and the planet's health are a priority in this House. And how did this government explain to the next generations that our actions here were truly for the protection of British Columbians?
Minister of Energy.
Well, thank you, Honourable Speaker, and it's by taking the actions that the Minister of Forests, the Minister of Emergency Management Services are taking to address issues of climate resilience, because these things are happening in our world and we in British Columbia don't control all of them. And so the actions described by both of them during the House in this session are significant for that, to help people prepare, help communities to prepare, and to prepare for those circumstances. And we have to take continued action against climate change. And that's why, through the Clean BC Fund and the Clean BC Plan, which is leading Canada in terms of the response to climate change, we continue to take action that's showing real success here in British Columbia. And we have to do more. And it's why, because this is something I share passionately with the leader of the Green Party, we're reviewing that Clean BC Plan so we can do better in future. And we put together an independent review, a statutory review, to do just that. There is more to do. Honourable Speaker, there is, of course, more to do, and we need to do it together.
Member for Vancouver-Colchena.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Last year, the Premier and the Leader of the Opposition each promised to investigate the irregularities associated with the last provincial election. But after 7 months and an entire legislative session, these promises have been broken. The Premier did not strike an all-party committee to investigate the election, and the Leader of the Opposition has been as quiet as a mouse on this issue. Mr. Speaker, my question is for the Premier. Why did he block this House from investigating Elections BC?
Attorney General.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just want to correct some of the information that the member has put in her question. There has been a committee struck. There's a special committee on democratic and electoral reform right now that's been struck to review the results of the election. We have a very rigorous process in BC that involves multiple reports after an election happens in British Columbia. The Chief Electoral Officer released their first one. I'll be following the subsequent ones, and every time that happens, we make and look to see if there's any legislative changes necessary so we can make sure that the next election has gotten that feedback implemented. And we can, to have fair elections in this province is a vitally important component of our democracy, and we'll continue to do that work.
Member supplemental.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. November 4th, 2024, that was the day on which the Premier committed to this all-party committee. We haven't heard anything about it. There have been no reports back. What has been investigated and what is being discussed in terms of what are the issues that have been arising and what are the actual problems that you're identifying in this committee you say you've struck?
Attorney General.
Yes, the committee has been struck, Mr. Speaker, and that's a work of all parties in this House to sit down and to look at not only the last election, but how we can increase voter turnout and what the forms are of our democracy to keep it strong in this province. Mr. Speaker, this is a pattern of discussion that's coming from the opposition and the independents that are related to undermining and speaking about undermining our democracy in a Trump-style attack. We have a strong commitment to our democracy here, and we continue to do the work to make sure that we strengthen and...
Members. Members, Attorney General will conclude.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We'll continue to do the work, and we take every report from the Chief Electoral Officer and the report of that committee very seriously.
Member for Prince George, North Caribou.
Thank you, Speaker. One person who clearly benefited from the Premier's policies, which are killing people throughout the province and on the downtown east side, was the Premier's best friend, Michael Bryant. This was a $325,000 contract, orchestrated by the Premier and his office, with absolutely nothing to show for it. How many more people are going to suffer and die while the Premier makes deals and cuts checks for his friends?
Minister of Social Development.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As we can all understand, the challenges facing the downtown east side are complex. And across government, it's hard to find a ministry on this side that has not been working very hard in partnership with the private sector, with the not-for-profit sector, with businesses in the community. And we get a lot of advice from people on the ground. We get a lot of advice from our advisory committees. As the members as the member knows, the contract with Michael Bryant has been terminated. It was a distraction from the work that is happening on the ground in the downtown east side. And we'll continue to bring the work from government, from the front line, through our Cabinet Committee on Community Safety, to bring new perspectives and to bring solutions to tackle the intractable problems on downtown east side. Thank you.
Member for Surrey White Rock.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know what? The only thing worse than having to take direction from a premier to execute a contract of the Premier's friend on the backs of downtown east side residents is having to stand up and defend the said contract because the Premier doesn't have the integrity to do it himself. What a joke. The fact is, the Premier told this minister to go and do this contract. Okay? Then the fact is, the Premier can't even stand up and defend a failed contract that has cost this province thousands of dollars because the Premier wanted to find his friend a soft landing pad because he couldn't even do the job properly, and the Premier knows it.
Member, it's all members should be careful when we are addressing the other person. We are not challenging anybody's personal integrity or credibility. We are asking the question about the matter of the question. Continue.
So my question to the Premier is a very simple one. Does this Premier stand by his decision to give a contract to his friend to direct a minister to give a contract to his friends on the backs of downtown east side residents and then pull the contract because the heat got too much? So which one is it? He says it's a distraction, but then he stands by the work. So the taxpayers are left on the hook because once again, this Premier chose to play fast and loose with the rules. So will this Premier get up in this House today? It's kind of similar to when he sells his condo a couple days before taxes change, right? At the end of this day, the Premier needs to stand up and defend why he left British Columbians on the hook because he decided he was going to reward a friend.
Member for Minister for Social Development.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Premier has been very clear on the record, has stood up in front of the media a lot on this, and has in this House. But let me take the opportunity, since this has been well canvassed already, and because we have people with lived experience, many from the downtown east side, who are here at the legislature today, rallying for support, to be able to talk about some of the things that our government has been able to deliver on the downtown east side. 624 net new housing units and 40 new shelter spaces, just since March 2023 alone, a
Members.
combined 211 supportive homes and shelter spaces are underway. These are not talking points as the member is heckling. These are services that are being delivered
Members.
on the ground now. And because outcomes matter for people, I am so encouraged.
Members, members, come to order, please. Minister will conclude.
Outcomes for people on the downtown east side. Over the last year, a drop of 2.9% of the number of people who are on income assistance and a drop of 7% of the number of people that are homeless. We have more to do, but I'm glad that we are heading in the right direction, working together.
Member for Chilliwack, Cultus Lake.
Thank you. I came here to this House and to this position to serve British Columbians because far too many people in this province have had to bury their loved ones. My family is unfortunately included in those statistics and the lives that have been lost by the toxic drug crisis. Today, I'm going to say their names because I think that too often we repeat numbers and we play politics with issues that actually affect people. So for Stanley, Jared, Sheila, Chayton, Kevin, and Tamara, I'd like to ask this question. How many more families have to bury their loved ones before this Premier admits that the failed drug policies are perpetuating this crisis? How many more funerals will you have us attend before it's enough? And how many more lives need to be lost before you admit that people need treatment, not promises? They need leadership and not politics. And we need a real response to the nightmare that we're living.
Minister of Health.
Thank you so much, Honourable Speaker, and thank you to the House Leader from the opposition for raising what surely is one of the most critical issues that is facing us. And I want to begin, Mr. Speaker, the way that I began when I answered a question from the House Leader at the beginning of this session, which is to express that my deep condolences to her and her family for the losses that she has faced, and to express to all British Columbians the sadness and the grief, and acknowledge that for the 16,000 people, more than 16,000 people, that we have lost to the toxic drug crisis. Mr. Speaker, that is why this government has placed such a priority on developing every tool in the toolbox, providing a continuum of supports for people to address this crisis. Mr. Speaker, this is a government that is going to continue to act with compassionate dedication and determination to do everything that we can. We're going to try things. They're not always going to work out the way we thought they would. We're going to make the changes that we need to. And we've seen that demonstration here, Mr. Speaker, because we're not afraid to try these things. We know we have to do everything that we can. Mr. Speaker, that's why in this year's budget, we've added $500 million of new funding to support mental health and substance use issues across the spectrum. Mr. Speaker, from early intervention to prevention, to treatment and recovery beds, to aftercare. Not all bed-based, but ability to base through phone lines and virtual supports so that people living in remote and rural communities can access these supports. Mr. Speaker, we're going to continue to do this work. I know that the House Leader of the Opposition brings a very important voice to this work.
Thank you,
and
Minister.
I look forward to continuing to work with her.
Thank you. Any other question? Oh, sorry, miss. I didn't see member. Member for Skeena.
Speaker, you know, that $500,000 that the health minister just referenced in the budget clearly states that it's to support the ongoing work that's already in place for treatment and recovery services. It's not for new services, because this is not an issue that this government has taken nearly seriously enough. One of the reasons that I came to this place is because I know what it's like to feel invisible, abandoned, and hopeless as someone that's unhoused. And that's why I can't stay silent while the people in my riding are left to suffer in the margins. In Terrace, 1 in every 84 people is homeless. Let that sink in. If that same rate applied to the Lower Mainland, it would be as if everyone in the city of Langley suddenly became homeless overnight. Would this government ignore it then? To the Premier, how many more people have to freeze or starve to death before you stop pretending that your failing patchwork of programs is working and act like our lives matter?
Members, that's enough. Minister for Housing.
Thank you so much, Honourable Speaker. We, on this side of the House, find it unacceptable when we see people that don't have access to housing. We had, for 2 decades, governments deciding that it wasn't government's business to be building housing. For 2 decades, we had the federal government, provincial government say, you know what, we'll just leave it to the private sector. Somehow it'll solve itself, Honourable Speaker. We're paying the price for that in our communities.
Member for Surrey Cloverdale. Minister will conclude.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. That's why we're making such large and significant investments in all communities. The member and I exchanged conversation in estimates, and I shared with the member that we've already built 114 homes. There's another 104 that are under construction in the member's community, and we have a new fund opening up for more housing opportunities throughout this province. The reason why we put those dollars in place is because we believe to our core that everyone deserves a home. Everyone deserves a roof over their heads, Honourable Speaker. That's why we're out there in every single community opening up new housing opportunities. And some of the members across the way were at the openings and will be at the openings, and that's a good thing. We should be celebrating that together, and we should be continuing to find ways in our communities to make the case that everyone, doesn't matter if they're rich or if they're poor, doesn't matter if they're a young person or a senior, they all deserve the same housing opportunities, Honourable Speaker. We're going to continue to do that. I welcome others to join us.
The bell ends the question period.